Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. When we just look back over the last month, here's a map that shows the departure from normal temperatures. And we can see that overall throughout the Carolinas, we were a little cooler than average. This didn't mean, of course, that every day was cooler than average, but when we put it all together, some of the colder air outbreaks we had at the beginning of the month of November really are going to settle us into a month that on the end is going to show up colder than average. Where the real cold air has been tucked into parts of the Midwest and the Central Plains, getting back up into the Canadian prairies. Now, at the same time, when we take a look at this picture, this is what precipitation looks like in terms of percent of normal. And certainly when we come back on the statistics at the end of this month, we will see that the month of November here is going to show up on the slightly wetter than average side of things. Now, the way that our precipitation has been coming in in kind of these big helpings all at once, and then followed by a little bit longer dry spells. So before we get into this forecast, I want to continue with a little bit of forecast verification. I showed you this a week ago. We're looking at the GFS outlook for last week's rainfall and the European over here on the right. And you know that I almost always heavily favor the European due to its longer term forecast performance. But what we notice right now is that over the last week, the GFS did a much better job on the timing and amount of the precipitation that came through. And here's just looking at how much we did add up through the last week. And so if I just toggle back and forth, you can see, take a look at the map over there on the left. See what we got compared to what we were forecast. Here's what we were forecast. Here's what we got. Much better job by the GFS model picking up on this pattern. Now, here's the thing as we move forward in the forecast. Both the GFS and the European model are actually in almost lockstep with one another. You'll see in a few minutes. So as we get on into this, here is the main story that we've got going on right now. Sweeping through the North Pacific, there is a powerful low pressure system that is coming here into coastal Oregon and Washington. Why talk about it? Well, this is going to be a system that will be coming through us early next week, potentially bringing in some precip. What we're going to be watching in the near term is actually this feature riding through here where the subtropical jet meets the polar jet, producing a powerful low pressure system that might be bringing us a chance of precipitation just before Thanksgiving. But most of these systems are going to avoid really being a major impact in the Carolinas this week, while they really hammer other parts of the country. You see, this is what the surface wind speeds are going to look like on the day on Tuesday, so tomorrow, and you can see two powerful low pressure systems, one here just off the coast, actually producing hurricane force winds, even though it's not a hurricane, and one right here in the midsection of the country. High pressure dominates things over here on the East Coast as we progress forward through the beginning of this week. So let's figure out when and where the precipitation kind of moves through the country, and does it get over to us in the Carolinas. So look at this very busy map from weather.gov early this morning here, showing us our major weather hazards. And this potential storm that is moving through the Midwest in the next couple of days has the potential for putting down quite a bit of snowfall from Colorado all the way to to Wisconsin. But I want you to see the snowfall trajectory. In fact, let me draw that again in black. You see, whenever we see the winter storm watches and winter storm warnings taking this orientation, this means that low pressure systems are emerging out of the plains and lifting to the northeast. The ones that are problematic for us in the Carolinas are those that start here and dig and then go here toward the northeast. So it's a much different storm track. That and Gulf flows that come up the coast, and we're not anticipating any of those anytime soon. So while this map looks very, very busy, it's going to be a pretty benign week for us in the Carolinas. And let me talk to you about why. Animating our high resolution model here, high pressures in control through the day on Monday, getting into the day on Tuesday, and finally finishing early Wednesday morning. It won't be until Wednesday midday that we start to bring up our chances for precipitation over here in the Carolinas as this first system comes racing through the midsection of the country. Now, if you are traveling in this area, going from the Carolinas to that area, that is going to be a location where we're going to have major travel headaches because of the snow and extremely windy conditions we're going to be experiencing through the midsection of the country. Also, if you're traveling out of the Carolinas and you're heading west, it's going to be a nasty week ahead, basically everywhere on the inside of this half circle that I just drew. So be prepared if you have travel plans across the country. So looking just at snowfall, just so you can see how much we're anticipating from Colorado up through northern Wisconsin. If you have a connecting flight in Denver, if you have a connecting flight in Minneapolis, just beware that this is the pattern that's moving throughout this week. Now, I know that's getting away from ag, but this is a busy travel week, so I want to make sure that we're well aware of what we're anticipating here. Notice that by the time we get all the way up to Wednesday evening, like I said, the rainfall really has yet to get into the Carolinas. While it would be bringing quite a bit of rainfall from Michigan through Indiana, getting down here into parts of the Mid-South, maybe potentially bringing up over an inch. Because this system is moving in this direction, the frontal passage through the Carolinas late this week will be relatively weak. So we then look and say, all right, well, is there anything else following this system? Before I show you more details about that first one, is there anything following the system in the 4 to 10 day forecast? So I'm talking here about November 27th, so Wednesday, 6 p.m., all the way through December 5th. And the answer is yes, but again, it's for the Midwest. And you can see here drier conditions in both the GFS and the European model overall throughout the next 10 days. Now remember, this is drier than normal. This doesn't mean completely dry. So let me show you what I mean by these models being almost in lockstep with one another. And we're going to use this to try to understand our temperature patterns as well. Cool start to the day today on Monday, of course. That trough sweeps out. Whoops, let's pause that and watch that again. That trough sweeps out here and we start to rebound in our temperatures throughout the early part of this week. Now, by Tuesday night, here's the leading wave producing that low that will go to our north and possibly drag our front through us later this week. But as we see that low, do you notice it went right out of their central plains toward the northeast? You can look at either map because the GFS on the left versus the European on the right are almost the exact same solution. I'm so impressed that our models are kind of one and the same right now. And you notice that after that goes through toward the end of our week, another big surge of warm air out ahead of this. And what is it out ahead of? Well, our next big low pressure system that by Saturday will be taking shape in the midsection of the United States. But again, I'll have to show you when that cold air gets here because it won't be until the start of next week, and with it some precipitation. Now beyond that, if I just take you out here into the first week of December, we see broad troughing across the western part of the United States. We're going to see what that means in terms of our temperatures as we look out past day 7, 8, 9 and get into that 11 to 15 day forecast here. Okay, so that's our general pattern moving forward. Let's now see what it looks like over the next 10 days. So playing this one forward, let's pause it right here. This is now Wednesday at midnight, getting into Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening. You see, that's when the best chance at rain from system number 1 comes through. It's Wednesday afternoon and evening through the Carolinas, but we're not talking about much precipitation here. I will say this, getting into Wednesday evening though, look at how tightly packed together those isobars are. That's some pretty strong winds that are coming in behind this system. Cool down occurs as we get into the day. This is Thanksgiving morning, right around 7 a.m. High pressure will be in control, but look at the next system that is taking shape here by the time we get to Friday midday. So just to let you know, if you're traveling on, basically Wednesday evening through Friday afternoon, Friday evening, things are going to be relatively okay if you're staying here on the eastern seaboard. It is if you have to, for some reason, get across the country, it's going to be nasty, and there will be lots and lots and lots of delays because of these two storm systems coming up. That right there, that's Saturday morning. Look at the size of that low in the midsection of the country. Now, does this one get precipitation to us? It does. This is Saturday evening, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. As this big low broadens out here, watch Sunday morning to Sunday afternoon for our next chance at rainfall. But overall, even with these two large systems coming through, they're not bringing in that much rainfall in total for us. But I do want to let you know something before I give you those numbers. The model agreement on producing that big low pressure system in the midsection of the country is very high. So this upcoming weekend rainfall, so I'm 7 days out from when I'm making this video, it's real and it's going to be in the forecast here. So anything beyond that, well, this is week 2. We do see that beyond that, much of our wetter weather is tucked away both in GFS and the European in California. Because you remember at this time, the broader trough is now sitting in this area. So it's always downstream of the trough that things are wet. And on the back side of it, we tend to be drier than average. So really, over the next 15 days, we do have 2 precipitation events coming up. One the middle of this week, Things clear out for Thanksgiving, and then one over the weekend. But outside of that, week 2 doesn't look to be too upsetting. Now, what about the temperatures overall? Well, we're starting off cooler than average in the morning here on Monday. But let's play this forward to see how those temperatures rebound. This is now getting into Tuesday evening. This is now Wednesday morning. Look at the warm air surging ahead of that big low in the midsection of the country. So, yep, we're on the warm up here Wednesday afternoon. This is now, look at this, Wednesday evening, getting into Thanksgiving Day. We are going to be seeing temperatures on Thanksgiving morning about 5 degrees warmer than average. But some cooler air is trying to push through by the time we get into Thursday evening. All right, but still, none of the major departures from normal that we're seeing across the rest of the country. Now the new system starts to form Friday, so watch the warmth go right back up the gut of the country here. And what do we get in the Carolinas? Well, we're going to be split. As we get into Saturday morning, still cool hanging off the East Coast. Remember, that's when the broader trough is sitting here, but warming up west. And we can see that through Saturday evening, getting into Sunday morning, that's when we get the big push of moisture. This will be the wetter conditions we'll see Sunday afternoon and evening, coming in on that warmer than average conditions, and then a blast of cooler air comes in behind this one to start us off on Monday into early Tuesday next week. Looking out past day 10, getting you to the 11 to 15 day time period, temperatures could possibly be slightly cooler than average as we get here into the first full week of the month of December, and that overall depends on the depth and kind of the staying power of the broader trough that we're seeing here. So our pattern's doing something like this, with ridging here, but a broader trough here and broader trough there. We can see it in both maps here. All right, so that's kind of our near-term forecast. What's going on that could potentially upset things once we get into December? Well, I'm watching 3 areas. First, Siberia. Massive buildup of the Siberian high. Well, it's forecast to come back over toward normal, even slightly weaken. At the same time, things are getting quite active sitting out here over the Aleutian Islands. Now you're saying, why tell me about the Aleutian Islands? Well, it turns out the pattern over Alaska and Greenland tend to dominate what goes on in the Carolinas. And if I see oscillation here in the power of the Aleutian low, that tells me the North Pacific Ocean is quite active. Lastly, before I get to another part of the world, we see that the polar vortex is elongated, all right? And with heights building in this area, we could be looking at a potential early to mid-month polar vortex disruption. Now, whenever the polar vortex is weakened or disrupted, stretched, split, somebody in northern hemisphere is going to get dropped into some deep cold. And we're right now trying to analyze and understand when and how that could potentially happen. All right, so we'll keep an eye on it for you. But I want to bring your attention to this. Just late last night, early this morning, we got a brand new run from the European model looking at the month of December precipitation. Now, what I want you to notice is that with the features going on in the tropics right now, we're trying to keep a very active subtropical jet stream. So I'm anticipating a very unsettled month of November. Now, the GFS model, not the GFS, the CFSV2, that's the long-range version of the U.S. model, is trying to keep things on the cooler side, but the European is trying to keep much of the colder air tucked away to the north, back west, and in the northeast as well. So even though you see the wetter than average conditions coming in here, I don't anticipate at this time, when we're looking at the whole month, major temperature differences. Yeah, it's December. We're going to go on a roller coaster no matter what. But when we average it all together, not anticipating locked into either a really, really cold or a really, really warm pattern at this point. Okay, what's influencing this? Well, we've got 3 big things. Indian Ocean dipole. See the cold water there and the warm water here? This is still the dominant factor in the tropics. We got to watch our El Nino region. I'm anticipating once we get past the next few weeks, cooler water to start to emerge in this area. Now that's in stark contrast to the warm water that's tucked away up here into the Gulf of Alaska. And overall, that favors a jet stream pattern that has 2 pieces to it, just like this, a northern branch and a southern branch, and possibly going to be watching for some cutoff lows coming in like this. Now, to show you the impacts of this flow pattern, I'm going to take you up to the upper levels of the atmosphere and explain this Hofmüller diagram. Now, it's a difficult one to look at. I know it's something you don't usually see, but this is the forecast going forward, and I want you to see these colors. You see, those colors represent upward motion in the atmosphere, and they're sitting right on top of Eastern Africa. These colors represent drier than normal conditions, and where are they sitting? Right on top of Indonesia and Australia as we move forward. And we're going to talk at the end of this about South America. We see that overall there's decently favorable conditions for getting rains in Brazil and Argentina. We're going to see just how much in just a few moments. But the drought that is going on in Australia has no chance at recovering as long as this pattern stays in place. And what's happening here? Well, just today, early this morning, still more fires down here in the very southeastern part of the island. And then you can see right up here along the coast, still quite a bit of smoke under some of that cloud as well. And you've heard some of the tragic stories we've seen out of these fires. There's nothing in the near term that says any major relief is going to be coming to Australia. You can see it. That area right there, very dry compared to normal. But what do we notice? Remember, like I said, it appears that the momentum transfer out of the tropics is trying to focus on a stronger subtropical jet. To finish this up, let's go down here and talk about South America. And you can see the precipitation anomalies, but we'll go ahead and zoom in on it. I have on the left the GFS ensemble, and on the right, the European ensemble. Much of the focus of the heavier rain is in Paraguay, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Paraná, which is right into this area. And so we can see here that that's a region that's expecting to get a lot of heavy precipitation. Mato Grosso do Sul was quite late in the planting of their soybeans, so this rain is much needed here, but this will certainly impact a lot of things moving forward. And just remember, our longer-term narrative out of South America was a later plant than a year ago, and still drier than average conditions have persisted when you look back over the last 60 days. So this is just less than ideal, although we're going to have to see how the first crop soybean comes out. The biggest time period for those beans is going to be late December throughout the month of January as we get critical rains for pod fill. We'll see if that comes in because that'll affect second crop corn and cotton as well. That's why we keep you updated once a week right here. We want to thank you for watching. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon. And because I'll talk to you after Thanksgiving, I hope you all have very safe travels and an excellent time with your friends and family as you celebrate Thanksgiving. Thank you.